Started. Hello, everyone. I'm Jacob Vanderwerf. I'm one of the admissions counselors here at Whitworth University. I actually cover Montana and Southwest Washington and Spokane Valley. So if you're from that area and we haven't met before, good to meet you and for everyone who else is here. Super excited you're here today. Thanks for taking the time to be a part of this Understanding Your Financial Aid offer webinar. Hopefully, you'll get a lot of really good information today that can kind of help you to better understand your offer from Whitworth and what paying for college in your financial aid offer will look like. So a few housekeeping things. First, we're going to have plenty of time for questions at the end. If you do have a question, please drop it in the question and answer function. If you go onto like the Zoom taskbar at the bottom, click on the more three dots and you scroll down, it has like a Q&A. I know it's a few steps, but if you could click into there to ask the questions, that'd be great. Also, if you just want to message us normally, 509-413-0037 is the number to reach us at. If you need to shoot a text with a question instead, again, that's 509-413-0037. And I'm here to answer any of your questions. So again, thank you. If you have any tech difficulties, message us. Love to help there. But I'm going to go ahead and let Tracy Spoon Stenslin. She's our Assistant Vice President of Student Financial Services. She's really the star of the show here, and she's going to take over and answer or run you all through this financial aid presentation.
Well, good evening. Thanks for being with us this evening. I just love this time of year in the financial aid profession. It's a time to watch students explore their campuses and to find their right fit home for next year. And we're just delighted that Whitworth is part of your journey. I just want to spend some time this evening walking through what our financial aid offer communicates and answer any questions that students or parents might have related to it. Okay, Jacob, can you advance my slide? Great. So the first thing is I want to do is just establish some definitions so that we're all on the same page of what things mean when I'm talking. So financial aid can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And some people are kind of surprised to learn that the federal government has in regulation that the first form of financial aid for students 24 years and younger would be the parents. And parents are like, I'm a form of financial aid. And according to our federal regulations, financial aid parents are a form of financial aid. And so that's why we have you fill out the FAFSA or the WASFA. But there's other financial aid from the federal and state governments, from institutions, and from private donors. And financial aid can be, free gift aid in the forms of scholarships and grants. It can be self-help where the student is doing student employment or taking out student loans. So it comes from various sources in different forms. Every student's financial aid is based on a cost of attendance at a respective institution, and there are certain things that the government has us include in a cost of attendance when we're calculating financial aid. And that's the direct costs that are billed by the institution, like tuition and fees, housing and food. And then indirect costs, books and supplies, transportation, travel, and miscellaneous expenses. All of those represent the cost of higher education. Just the direct costs are what are billed by the institution. We encourage all families to complete the free application for federal student aid or the WASFA so that we can provide the student in their financial aid offer all the sources of aid that are available to them. So, if you haven't done that, we really encourage you to take that step and do that so that you're not missing anything, and that you can consider all your options in terms of resources. The FAFSA and WASFA produce what we call a student aid index. For some of you who have been through the financial aid process maybe before, it used to be referred to as the EFC, the estimated financial contribution from the family contribution. Now it's the student aid index. And what it represents is just the financial strength of the family. And we do use that to award need-based financial aid. Okay, so we're going to jump into our financial aid offer letter. We at Whitworth have taken several years to perfect this. I really like our offer. All offers look a little different from schools. The government says, you need to have some basic information there for families. So they'll have similar components, but they may not be all arranged the same way. I'm particularly pleased with ours. I think it lays out the information in a clear way for families to process. At the top, we identify which academic year this applies to and the student ID that it applies to. So that's important to note, as well as the date that we are presenting the offer. That can be important if you're trying to figure out if you've made changes to your FAFSA, and you want to know, is this offer based on my first FAFSA, my first 01 transaction, or perhaps my second transaction or third transaction. It indicates whether the offer is estimated or final and the number of credits that it will cover. At Whitworth, a student is for full-time is 12 to 16 credits each semester. So that means without Jan term, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit, but a student can earn 32 credits in one academic year, which advances them from the freshman to the sophomore year. After 16 credits, and there is an overload charge for credits, but most students in their first year do not go into overload. And then it identifies if the student is living on campus or off campus or with parents, and the SAI that the offer is based on. The next section represents scholarships and grants. And this is the most popular section of a financial aid offer because this is the free money, the gift money. Students don't have to repay these funds. The scholarships are usually based on academic and merit, and the grants will be based primarily on financial need. Scholarships and grants will be coming from both the institution, the state, and federal governments. It's important to know when you're looking at a financial aid offer which scholarships are renewable. We renew all of our scholarships except for the Visit Scholarship, which I'm sure you're familiar with. That is just a 1-year scholarship. But otherwise, our Academic Achievement Scholarship, our University Need-Based Grant, our Whitworth Bound Scholarship, Honors Scholarship, Military Service, and Talent or Participation Scholarships are all renewable. The talent and participation, that does require that you're participating oftentimes in the area, such as theater or music, to receive those funds. One thing I want to mention about scholarships and grants, as you're comparing other aid offers, like I said, it's important to know if it's renewable. Some institutions will award first-year students differently than what their sophomore, junior, and senior offers will look like. And sometimes that's not overly apparent when you're looking at the offer letter. So it's really important to make sure you understand, lest I will have these funds for 4 years. All students do have to make satisfactory academic progress. That's not anything unique. That's true at every institution in order to have the funds renewed. Here's some information about our talent and participation scholarships. If you have interest in art and design, forensics, speech and debate, media, music, theater, or young life, you'd want to get in contact with those respective departments, and we have the deadlines there. They all have separate applications or activities that need to be accomplished to be considered for those scholarships. Okay, the next section on the offer letter addresses student loans. Some families say student loans are not a form of financial aid, but actually they are. They're federally insured. And when a student completes a FAFSA or WASA, we're required by the federal government to inform the student that is a resource for them. The student does not have to take out the student loans, but the student loans are different than commercial loans. And I want to unpack that for you a little bit. Student loans have to be repaid, but they're not like a typical consumer loan. So let me just share a little bit what's unique about them. So students who show financial need can receive the subsidized loan. And you can see there the bullets on the bottom. The amount of the subsidized loan changes based on the student's grade level. So a first-year student can expect to receive $3,500 under that program if they show financial need. The government is paying the interest on that loan while the student is in school and for 6 months after the student leaves school. It's what's really nice about this loan is if this loan were to be paid off before the end of the 6 month grace period, it is an interest-free loan. Then the government introduced a non-need based federal student loan that is called the unsubsidized, and that's where the student is responsible for the interest while the student goes to school. It does not capitalize on top of the principal, so it doesn't snowball on top for the student. The current interest rate on this loan is 6.39%. Students can borrow in their first year up to $2,000. Some families say, well, I don't want the unsubsidized, I just want the subsidized, and that's fine. And some families decide they don't want loans at all. That's fine. But we do present it as a resource for the student to consider. And as you can tell, the subsidized loan, the government's paying the interest while the student's in school. It's not like a commercial loan where interest is accruing. There are two different repayment options for students. There's the fixed payment plan, where your monthly payments, just based on a set amount. And then there's the IDR plan that's based on your income and family size. And students can change from payment plan to payment plan, and there's no penalty for prepayment on these loans. If a student were going to go on to graduate school, you can, on the subsidized loan, you can defer the principal, and the government will kick back in and pay the interest on that. On the unsub, you're always responsible for the interest. But it's a nice opportunity for students if they decide, a few years into repayment, they want to return to grad school, they wouldn't have the payments on their student loans. They could defer those until they were finished with their graduate work. Okay. The next section on the award letter talks about additional resources. So we've talked about scholarships and grant, gift aid, free money, student loans, student borrows, federally insured loans, and now some additional resources students may use would be federal or state or student employment work study. We have quite a few students working on our campus. And then credit-based loans. These are not federally insured loans. They do require a credit check, and we'll unpack this a little bit. So a credit-based loan that a parent could borrow from would be a federal direct parent loan. These are government loans. They do require a credit check. The current interest rate is 8.94%. It will change again on July 1st, 2026. We don't know what that will be. The annual maximum is 20,000, and parents can borrow an aggregate maximum up to 65,000. A parent can be the student's biological, adoptive, or step parent. Interest is charged at the time of disbursement, but parents don't have to begin repayment on these loans until 60 days after the student graduates or leaves school. So the parent can choose to pay the interest or not pay it. It won't snowball, but it'll be there with the principal when the student graduates. And then with 60 days, they need to begin repayment on this loan. Parents who are not approved this loan for credit reasons, the student then can borrow an additional unsubsidized loan for $4,000. The government usually opens up the application in mid-April. Families can go online and apply for the parent loan, and within minutes they'll know whether they're approved or not. Private education loans are offered through commercial lenders and credit unions. They, again, like the parent loan, require a credit check. Students can borrow credit-based loans, but most of the time they do require a cosigner. So you just have to research the different options and products that are available and see what might work best for your family. They do have some products where once the student has made payments after graduation for like 18 months or 2 years, the cosigner is released. So there's some nuances related to these loans that families might find interesting. But these are private loans through commercial banks. We can't recommend any of these banks or lenders, but we do have a search engine on our website for the lenders who our students are using. And we wouldn't have them in the search engine if they had caused any issues for our students. So those are the products our students are using. So you can start there if you want to do a search on credit-based private education loans. Okay, student employment. This is a great opportunity for students to earn money, but it's also a great opportunity for them to get connected to the university. We have several worksite students in our student financial services office. They are such a blessing. They do such a great job, and they're getting great skills. So jobs are usually posted in Handshake. That's the employment software we use to manage student employment, and those are usually available in late August. In early September, when students have gone through orientation, then they can start doing in-person interviews. They can come on campus with a resume or work with our Career Center, our services for to help with a resume. Washington minimum wage right now is 17.13 an hour. So students really only have to work about 8 to 10 hours a week during the semester to earn $3,500 to $5,000 a year. And those funds are paid directly to the student. So it can help out a lot, help pay for books and supplies and transportations. And if a student doesn't qualify for work study, we still offer plenty of student employment jobs on campus where they can apply for those positions. So we speak very highly of the opportunity for students to work. We greatly appreciate what they contribute and what they're learning. And one thing about a student employment job is that we're there to help them be a successful student. So we know, when they come in and say, I have a test and I'm pretty stressed, like, okay, like next time, let us know sooner, like plan ahead. Um, but um, but go ahead and go and study for that test. Be a successful student. Um, so it's a great opportunity for students to earn some money and get skills.
Tracy, quick question kind of related
Yes.
to that.
Yes.
Um, do you see often students who are maybe athletes or in the honors program who are still able to work on campus jobs?
Yeah, definitely the honors. I haven't seen anything there that caused us, work. Sometimes students in the sciences, with heavy course loads in sciences, athletes when they're in season, that's a little bit more difficult. But when they're not in season, a lot of athletes will work. We've hired, we've had, we've had plenty of football players even during season, but you have to be creative and flexible.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like I see lots of
Yeah.
athletes who are working on campus, but yeah, you have to find the right position that's
Right
flexible.
position. Yeah, a lot of times I'll say start with the athletic department because a lot of times they'll have positions or opportunities like after training or like I had one student who was doing the laundry for the team. And that was her student employment job. But she could also do studying while she did the laundry, which was kind of a nice situation. But there's not too many of those jobs. But check with the athletic department first, and see what options there are.
Or even working for admissions, shameless
Yeah,
plug,
you can
like
work for
giving
admissions. That's true.
giving tours, hosting other athletes overnight. So that's another
Yeah,
option too.
that's awesome. Okay. We encourage students to research for outside scholarships. Those are scholarships coming from private organizations, but they can make a big difference in a student's ability to cover expenses. We encourage students to get a resume, letters of recommendation, transcripts, essay, create a folder that has all your tools in it, whether it's electronic or paper. Check with your high school counselor and apply for as many local scholarships that you can find. And check with your church. Sometimes they will offer scholarships or your parents' employers. If you have been involved in an organization, done volunteer work, check with them. And look into academic departments, see if your high school has any. And then once you're here at Whitworth, I'll talk a little bit about this, but we have donor-sponsored scholarships. But it's never too late to apply and keep looking. The biggest thing about doing the outside scholarship search is being organized. But it can make a big difference. We have quite a few students bring quite a bit of money from outside sources their first year. Okay, so the back to the offer letter. We have a nice section that's called cost analysis. And I really value this because I believe that being transparent and straight up and how things look from the beginning is really important so that parents and students can plan accordingly. This will indicate our tuition and mandatory fees for next year, how much it costs to live on campus if you're planning to live on campus in a double room with a full meal plan, the total of that. And then we calculate your gift aid, your free money, and we subtract it and we say, okay, this is what you would owe if you just had your scholarships and grants. And then we do another calculation, say, okay, if you take out your student loans, this is what you would owe. So we do two calculations for you, showing you the net cost with just scholarships and grants, and then if you were to take out your student loans. We provide you in the booklet that we sent you with your offer a nice cost worksheet so that you can pencil out several times over, how much is going to be owed after your financial aid. We make some suggestions of where some resources might be to help cover that gap. And then we let you know too that we have a payment plan system. So next year, if a student comes to Whitworth in their freshman year, we don't front load scholarships, so students and parents can be assured we're not going to take those away from students in subsequent years. We have over 150 donor scholarships for sophomores, juniors, seniors. In November, we have a scholarship coordinator that sends out an email to students saying, here's an online application to complete so you can be considered for one of these 150 donor-based scholarships. And then when we're notified of outside scholarships that we know are reputable, then we will look at the criteria and reach out to students who might qualify. So we continue to help students look for resources even when they're at Whitworth. Okay, we know that the FAFSA doesn't always represent the family's financial resources for higher education. This year, you're reporting 2024 income on the FAFSA, but you could have some changes in your income, a parent attending college, medical expenses. You could have something that is not represented on the FAFSA, but offsets the income that's not and that would not be available for higher education. And we would like to know about those special circumstances because they could make a difference in your financial aid offer. Not always, but sometimes they do. So if you think you have a special circumstance, it's really important to get in touch with your admissions counselor during your financial aid call and talk through those. And then there's some steps that they can help you work through.
Tracy, kind of related to this, there's a question if somebody retired recently, is that a good opportunity for special circumstances?
If the income has changed, absolutely. Yeah, for
Great.
sure. What
Yeah,
we're looking for is the income that's on the FAFSA doesn't represent the resources the family has for higher education because it's no longer the income, it's less, or it's having to be used for medical expenses, or we took in grandma and now we're supporting additional family members, things like that.
fantastic. Thank you.
So, like I said, if you have special circumstances, discuss it with your admissions counselor, or you can call a financial aid counselor. You're going to complete an online form and it will be reviewed. And then there may be additional documents that we ask you for. So we try to do like a preliminary review. And if we think it's going to make a difference, we'll ask for that documentation. But we won't ask for the documentation until we know that it might make a difference because we don't want you to have to go through, uh, all that. And then we review special circumstances on a rolling basis. So I just received one today from one of our continuing students, and the parents had a loss of income in 2025. And so now they have their tax return done, and they're like, "Can you please look at this because we don't have the resources that our FAFSA said we did." So it's an ongoing journey with financial aid. Okay, we don't have you accept or decline your financial aid. We assume students want scholarships and grants. Those are automatically accepted. Work study is an option, and we just let you have it throughout the academic year. We don't take it away. The only thing we ask you that you respond to would be the student loans. And loans can be declined um, simply by calling. The student can call our office or email us. It does have to be the student, though, because that financial aid offer is offering those resources to the student, and the student has to be the one to decline them. So we have to have the communication from the student. If a student were to decline a student loan and then decide later that he or she wants a loan, we can certainly add the loan back into the offer, and that holds true till about the first or second week towards the end of the semester. We don't want to wait till the last day of the semester, but about 10 days before the end of the semester, if the student's like, "Oh, I really wish I'd taken out my student loans. Now I owe, or I didn't earn as much as I thought whatever it is, we can make that revision for the student. If the student doesn't do the necessary loan documents required for the loans, promissory note, entrance loan counseling, then we will remove those loans before billing so that they're not factored in as a resource, and that the billing is calculated correctly for the family. That's mid and spring semester starts in that the payment arrangements are made by mid-January. And the options for paying the balance would be to pay in full. Some families use 529 plans. Some want to use our Transact monthly payment plan. It's $50, and it spreads the payments out of 4 months, and there's no interest on that. Or parents apply for a parent loan or a credit-based loan. In early summer, we'll be sending you a pre-bill workbook, and that outlines all our billing processes and timelines for the year, and just allows you to use that as a reference and a guide as you're making decisions in terms of paying your bill.
Tracy, your Wi-Fi was a little sketchy at the beginning of that, or just chopped in and out a little bit. Would you mind saying the first little bit of this slide again?
Sure. In fall semester starts in September, and we ask that families have made payment arrangements by mid-August. In spring semester starts in February, so we ask that payment arrangements are made by mid-January. After we've made the initial offer, you get that nice booklet, big envelope, nice booklet, the nice offer letter. Any revisions we make to a student's financial aid offer will be communicated electronically through their self-service portal. So we will send the student an email, said there's been a change to your financial aid, check self-service. And you also want to check self-service for any missing financial aid documents. There's also an online reporting form available for reporting outside scholarships. So now it just becomes, using that portal to communicate with you, and you communicate with us and supply us any documents that are required. Okay, next steps. You will be invited to have a call with your admissions counselor to go over your financial aid offer. I highly encourage you to do this. They are great at reviewing financial aid offers, and they have a lovely spreadsheet that they can send you, a worksheet. So it's just really great. They can also talk to you about special circumstances, and what documents might be needed. And then if there are documents, we just ask that you submit those as soon as possible. If we have estimated special circumstances for you, we want to get those documents reviewed and get your offer finalized. Continue to look for outside scholarships, talk to your high school counselor, look at the libraries, do that legwork. It can make a difference. You can pay your deposit soon so that you are then sent your housing preference form. If there's some housing that you specifically are interested in, we like to get that deposit in so we can get you that housing preference form. And then after May, they ask that you submit your academic interest survey to begin the class registration process. I just want to impress upon you that we are here to help. You have a team of 11 of us in student financial services. You have a team of 20, I think, in admissions. We're all trained, and we're all ready to help you in your college choice process. And so just know that you're not alone. If you have questions, feel free to call or email, whatever works for you. We can set up Zoom calls, but we're here to help. We know it can be overwhelming. There's a lot to think about, a lot to balance, but you're not in it alone. So feel free to ask questions.
Thanks so much, Tracy. That was super informative. We've got quite a few questions in the Q&A
Okay.
already, so I'll start kind of dishing those to you. If other
Sure.
people have more questions, drop those in the Q&A and we'll get to them before the end of the night. All right, first, there's quite a few people wondering about like if there's any chart based on your income to see what your SAI is out there.
No, because an SAI, just like the old EFC, it takes into account a variety of factors. It takes into account the state that you're living in, your adjusted gross income, taxes paid, the number in the household, the age of the older parent, your assets at the time of signature. So it's not just one grid. It says if you earn this, this is what your SAI is going to be. It's called federal methodology, and you can look it up on the internet, but it's a pretty sophisticated methodology. It's really trying to get a sense of the family's total resources in a holistic way.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
Another question is kind of asking about um, what does the timing on this look like, right? Like, when's the deadline for financial aid? Do you have to declare you're committing to Whitworth before you get an offer? Things like that.
No, we just go by the national deadline of May 1st. We like to honor that for students. But there's no deadline in accepting your financial aid. You may decide you don't want your loans on June 15th, and that's fine. So there's no requirement. We ask students to confirm by May 1st. I encourage students to confirm by May 1st so that all those next steps begin to happen. The housing and the registration and all that, because there's things that have to happen over the summer to get the student onboarded, in the fall. So we just want enough runway time to make that a smooth process. But there's no like deadline for financial aid.
And then with loans, some people are a little confused on this. Do you need to
Okay.
decline the loans if you don't end up attending Whitworth?
No. If you don't attend Whitworth, we just cancel your offer.
Great, thank you. And then people are asking, we had this original deadline of February 1 for town participation scholarships, but the slide just said February 16.
Yeah,
Um,
we extended it. We extended it. That's a good catch. We just decided we wanted to have a couple more weeks for students to have opportunities.
Good job for the asker of that question. You're reading your
Yeah,
emails. Good work.
yeah.
Um, Let me look here. Um, but do you know much about resident assistance, Tracy, and how that works out at Whitworth? Otherwise, I
I
can
just
speak to it.
I just know that it's the students go through like an application process, and
Hmm.
they can't do it until their sophomore year.
Yep.
Um, and then they're interviewed and considered. That's all I know about it.
It's a pretty high intensity job at Whitworth. You do
Yeah.
get your full housing and meals covered. and you get an additional stipend on top, which is a very generous and obviously a high-paying job on campus. But if you're just doing it for the money, that's probably not the right intent because it's a really relational job. It asks a lot of you. You're hosting quite a few events. You have to get to know you get to get to know your residents really well. You befriend a lot of different people. It's high energy. You're out a lot, so you have to be good at time management, really personable. But then, yeah, if you're a good fit for that and you can make it through that process, it's a really neat opportunity, a way to grow leadership skills, and it pays well. Um, Another question here: what does the housing preference form do?
So, it gives the housing team idea of what kind of housing the student would like. Is there a specific building the student wants? Is the student a morning person? Is the person like to stay up all, really late? Is the person messy? Is the person really tidy? So when they're making roommate connections and putting people together, they want to have it successful. So they like do the form and collect data on the student so that they can make, good connections.
Another question here: if someone receives an outside scholarship, say from like this person's talking about a SAGE tuition scholarship, uh, and it was sent to Whitworth, when does this get reflected in their offer?
We, if it's reported in the outside scholarship form, we would put it in, and we don't have the funds yet. We reflect it in the offer as expected. And then once the funds come in, we transmit them to the student account, once classes start. So at first, it's reported as we reflect it as expected, and it does offset the chart, and it does, go towards the bill. And then once the funds come in, then there it goes into the transmitted onto the student account code. Um, yeah.
Yeah, that's helpful.
Did that answer the question?
I think so.
Okay.
Um, could you speak a little more about the need-based aid at Whitworth and the Whitworth Bound Scholarship?
Sure. So students that qualify for the college bound scholarship through the state of Washington, and the student has a 3.6 GPA, Whitworth has a scholarship called the Whitworth Bound Scholarship, and that's a $2,000 scholarship as long as the student continues to have the college bound scholarship through the state. College bound is for high need students. So those are SAIs that are very low, like zero, sometimes negative, up to like 3 or 4 thousand dollars.
Tracy, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but if the family has a financial aid appeal, they should reach out to their admissions counselor. They can either have a meeting or just explain their situation. And the
Mhm.
admissions counselor will send them the financial aid review form. The family
Correct?
should then fill that out, and then the Whitworth team will
Yep.
analyze that and make adjustments as needed.
Yep. There's a committee that reviews it.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Um, we had a few people who maybe joined late. So could you kind of explain SAI again and
Sure.
how that works?
Sure. It's under FAFSA simplification, which was came on board a few years ago. They moved away from the expected family contribution, the EFC that the FAFSA would generate, into what they call a student aid index. The index uses federal methodology, just like the EFC did, in terms of it uses various components of the application, the family's state taxes paid, adjusted gross income, assets, number in the household, number in college. Well, number in college isn't counted anymore. Um, what else? Just a variety of factors on the FAFSA, and it comes up with an SAI, which they refer to as a student aid index, and it represents the family's financial stability or strength, and that's what we use to award need-based aid.
Great. Thank you. We have a few people asking about our financial aid offers. Do those remain the same for all 4 years?
They can if the FAFSA is the same. The students sometimes income changes with families, and that does the Pell Grant, for example, and the state need grant. Those are income sensitive. We don't change our Whitworth aid, but anything that's from the federal and state governments are subject to budgetary cuts. It's subject to changes in the FAFSA. So, it's hard to say, will it be exactly the same? They're not usually exactly the same just because there's other variables that are playing into it. And then sometimes the student gets donor-based scholarships or they get outside scholarships or, so it just varies from year to year. The goal is to keep it consistent, but we don't have any control over what the federal governments and the state government does with the financial aid program sometimes.
Yeah, and you know that like your Whitworth, your merit scholarship,
Yeah.
that academic one is going to be the same for all 4 years,
Right. And we
which
don't
is
touch
great.
the grant either. So we're not gonna change your Whitworth aid, but the state aid and the federal aid can be tentative, more so the state aid right now.
Yeah. We've got a few more questions here. People are
That's
asking
okay.
some great
That's what I'm
ones.
here for.
Yeah. Uh, do you need to be, well, and this one is a yes and a no, but do you need to be
Okay.
majoring in a certain field to earn talent participation scholarships, or do you just show skills in that field?
I think it's gonna, well, I don't think so, because in theater, you don't have to be majoring in theater. It's more that you want to participate in the theater productions. So it's more participation in the theater productions. Art, I think, does require at some point you become a major. Music, I don't think you have to be majoring in music, but you do have to participating in ensembles. So it's kind of varies from department to department, but there is definitely a participation expectation.
Yeah, I think it's really dependent on the scholarship you're
Yeah.
applying to, and
Yeah.
it usually tells you in there if it requires you to be a major or not. Um, Based on the financial aid offer from Whitworth, it doesn't include any indirect costs. Are those included anywhere else, or do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Oh, so the reason on the cost analysis we didn't include the indirect costs is because those aren't charged by Whitworth. And so what families typically want to see is they want to see, okay, how much is it going to cost me to attend to pay my bill? That's what I need to do is pay my bill. And so that's what we present to them is how much is going to be owed. But in the booklet that we sent, there is an overall cost of attendance that shows the indirect costs.
Um, this question, a little in the weeds, but what form is aid given? Is it a check? Is it a direct
Oh.
deposit? It's usually just taken off the price, right? And then you don't have to pay that.
Yeah, so the financial aid, once we confirm the student has started classes, we transmit the aid to the student's account. And if the student has a credit, which means money left over, then we ask the student, do you want a check or do you want it ACH'd into your bank account?
All right. See another one here. Um, Already answered that. What's the big difference between a federal work study and just a normal job on campus?
Good question. So, federal work study, the government, when they're calculating the SAI, takes the income from work study out of the analysis. So it doesn't count against the student. But if the student's doing just straight student employment, it's taxable income and can be factored into the SAI. But if it makes a significant difference in the SAI, the school can adjust for that. So it's not a big deal.
Thanks. Here's another question. How can we get a full ride scholarship if we're not a resident of Washington State? Well, boy, am I glad you asked. We've got 3 honor scholarship weekends coming up. If you're admitted with honors to Whitworth, um, you're welcome to come to one of those events to register for that. And at those events, you can compete in some friendly competition with the potential to win a full tuition scholarship. At each of those 3 students, or at each of those 3 weekends, 3 students will win full tuition scholarships. So that's a really neat opportunity to show your stuff, get on campus, get that visit scholarship, and maybe earn some more scholarship money as well. Um, okay, if someone comes in taking a bunch of running start classes, does that affect their scholarships at all? If they come in with an AA, can they get donor scholarships right off the bat if they have an AA?
Let me work in order. It doesn't impact the academic scholarship, and it doesn't allow the student to apply for donor-based scholarships. We still see the student as a first-year student. It does impact the student loan eligibility. So if the student comes in with greater than 30 credits, the student can get $4,500 of subsidized loan. instead of 3,500. Or if the student comes in with 60 transferable credits, the student would be seen as a junior for the purposes of the loan program and could get 5,500 of subsidized. So it makes a difference in the loan eligibility, but that's about the only difference it makes.
Um, does tuition and room and board go up every year or is it frozen?
It does go up slightly. I've been at Whitworth 32 years and it always goes up just a little bit, just like everybody's costs go up. Ours go up too, and so they usually factor in a slight increase.
But I think what's been nice about our cost clarity model is
Yeah.
that that amount has been lessened, which is
It's
which is
going
pretty
to be
cool.
less going forward, which is really nice. And from working at the university for so long, I know that we take great pride in being good stewards. And so everything we do is student focused. And so I know that they try to minimize any cost increases for students.
Okay, so if a student has an outside scholarship and that gets added to their offer, will we then take away money from different parts of their offer to make it the same as it was before? Or how does that work?
We would only reduce something if the student's outside scholarship put them over financial need. Then we just have to take away need-based aid, but that doesn't happen very often. And the first thing we do is we would ask the student, do you want to reduce loans or work? But we don't take away our own money. There's been a few cases where students get like an enormous amount of outside scholarships. Then we just have to work one-on-one with that student. But because there are some federal regulations about going over financial need, but we don't. Our policy is not to reduce our own money first. It's always self-help monies.
Can a student have a federal work study job and a regular work study job?
Have a student employment and a federal work status? Yeah, you could, but we probably try to keep you in one category.
Great. Then another person asked, how does financial aid look different for athletes? And we're D3, right? So it
It
doesn't.
does not look different. As much as we appreciate you sharing your gifts and talents with our pirate athletics, we are a Division 3, which means we're student athlete, which means student comes first, and we cannot incentivize athletes financially in any way.
Yeah, it's NCAA rules, so
Yes. Oh,
super cool,
yes.
super cool athletes can still compete at a really high level here and compete
Yeah,
for championships, but unfortunately no scholarship money there.
correct.
Um, Here's another question. This is really broad, but how does Whitworth help if a student's not able to pay the cost of attendance? And I think we've kind of been talking about this whole time. Um,
Yeah.
but do you want to
Well,
speak to that at all?
we look at special circumstances, see if there's anything we've missed or that we need to adjust for. And then, of course, there's a committee that's reviewing those. So, we just ask the student to share their story, and see if there's any additional resources for that student. Can't guarantee, but then it just becomes a family decision.
Great. Well, Tracy, do you want to leave us with any words of wisdom or words of encouragement before we end this for the night?
I just go back to I know this is it can be a stressful time. And we are a committed team of people who are here for you. We want you to find your best fit campus. We would be delighted if it were with university. I love it. I've been there 32 years. I can't imagine my life without it. And we're praying for you and we wish you the best as you are on this journey.
Yeah, thank you all so much for being here. Thank you, Tracy, for sharing some of your wisdom. If you have more questions, reach out to your admissions counselor. They're kind of your one-stop shop to point you in the right direction, then to answer some questions for you, to have a meeting with you. We're here to help you. We're rooting for you. Like Tracy said, we're praying for you. So we look forward to being in touch, and everyone have a wonderful evening.